Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name's Taylor Muir-Fendereski, and I'm an investigative journalist here in Seattle, and also a board member for the SPJ Western Washington Pro chapter. And we're so excited to have you today for our program, The Reporter's AI Toolkit, Enhancing Stories While Preserving Standards. We have a great guest tonight who will be teaching us a lot about AI and how we can use it as journalists. But before we get into that, I want to go through a couple of announcements and tell you a little bit about our chapter. We are SPJ Western Washington Pro. We organize training events just like this one and other programs for journalists. And we support journalists through grant funding and their projects. We host mixers, regular mixers throughout the year where we get together in different restaurants and bars and other parts of the community to mix and mingle with our fellow journalists. And we also honor the outstanding work of local journalism through our Northwest Excellence in Journalism Awards. Those are just a couple of the highlights of things that we do. We also do a lot of advocacy work for journalists. And in a second, I'll tell you how you can get involved with us. We have 5 vacant seats on the SPJ Western Washington Pro Chapters board. And the deadline, if you want to sign up and get involved in our chapter, is this coming Friday. We will do elections. Our board will vote on who will be on the next board of directors. And so we're going to post some information in the Zoom chat about how you can apply. But basically, it involves attending regular board meetings monthly, and then our members of our board get even more involved, from planning events like this to participating on subcommittees and helping us execute some of the great programs and fundraisers that we do throughout the year. So we really, really, really need more great journalists on our board. It's a 2-year term. And so if you have any questions at all, you can reach out to us, spjwash@gmail.com. And that's also where you can submit your materials. It would basically be a couple paragraphs explaining why you want to join our chapter and run on the board, and also a resume or something so we know a little bit about your experience. And then we will get back in touch with you and let you know after the results after our election. So please, if you have any questions, we have some board members on this call who can answer your questions in the chat, or you could just send us the note to the email. We also have one other really big event coming up this month as well. It's our award ceremony for the Northwest Excellence in Journalism Awards. We are going to do that Thursday, October 23rd from 6:30 to 8:30 at Neighbors Nightclub and Lounge. And we have a guest speaker, Marcus Harrison Green. We're really excited to have him, and it's going to be a great chance not only to recognize the amazing awards, or the amazing work of local journalists, but also to get to know the people that are reporting in this area. So we hope you can make it. You can get more information also in the chat after I go through the rest of this. And seems like all of you guys found us somehow. So really excited to have you here. Hopefully you're already staying in touch with us on social media or getting our newsletter. If you have not received any communication from us, if you found about this event through some other means, please, please, please put your information in the chat and we will add you to our newsletter. That's where we promote events like this and tell you what's happening locally. And please also let your friends and coworkers know about what we're doing here, and that we want people to get involved. Now, I'm so excited to introduce Alex Mahadevan. I just said his name wrong. Mahadevan. He'll say it better than me, but he is the director of Poynter's AI Innovation Lab, and he is the expert at how we can be using AI to improve our stories while also staying true to the standards and ethics that we should all follow as journalists. And so I will hand it over to Alex, and he will also give you an opportunity to ask some questions at the end. So please give us a round of applause for Alex. I'm so excited to have him. And thank you, Alex, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Taylor, for that. Great pronunciation on the second try. It's usually takes people like 3 or 4 or sometimes 5. So actually, you pretty much nailed it. So yeah, like was mentioned, I'm going to be talking about generative AI, how it's used across newsrooms right now, and how you can put it put it to work. I want you to leave with really actionable things you can do right away. This is a hard topic to teach because I'm sure there are some people on this call who use it all the time, and then maybe some people who have never touched it. There's some new data that came out today that show adoption is on the rise, but still not totally widely adopted. So I am going to move pretty fast because I want to get through a lot to give you a lot to take away and practice on your own. So please drop any questions you have in the chat. I've got the chat open. I'm very good at multitasking as a journalist. And so I will jump right into it. So I spent a lot of time in hyperlocal news, actually. So before I came to Poynter, I worked in the digital news space, but I spent a majority of my career working for a weekly newspaper called The Observer on Florida's Gulf Coast. And I was sort of their first digital editor, and I was a video producer. I uh, did the newsletter. So basically, I was doing like four jobs, as many of you in this call are probably familiar with. So I spent my days basically writing a newsletter, shooting two videos, and editing everything that went on the website. So to do special projects was a Herculean task. So this was what I did after the 2016 election. I knew I had all this data for where people were voting and who they were voting for. So I thought, hey, this would be a really fun map to put together. And so I kind of worked on it on my downtime. It took maybe a week and a half of just here and there as I was trying to do everything else. A lot of hours actually for something that honestly looks pretty crappy when I look back to it. Like I would never publish this anywhere. Like, I mean, just even looking at the tooltip is it's very bad. But it ended up being the most read and most engaged story on the website for that year, and actually for several years. It was a very popular story, and it's something that took me a while to put together, just because there was a lot of data joining, and I wasn't really as much of a coder. So I thought, how can if I had AI back then, how could I have done this? And so I still have all the data. And in about 5 minutes, I just dropped all of the voting precinct data that I had downloaded from way back in the day into ChatGPT here. It started visualizing the data immediately. And within, I'm telling you, like 4 messages, in less than 5 minutes, I had this map open in front of me. And this is just static, but it's something that would have taken me a very long time juggling a lot of different jobs back then. Nowadays, with AI, it takes me like 5 minutes. I could make it interactive if I wanted to. However, when I did try to do it, it ended up just giving me this blue blob in the middle of an area that's outside of my coverage area. So we'll talk about how AI can do really, really cool things and make your job easier and faster and reach more people, but also how you might end up with a blob that looks like that. So the issue right now, in terms of how audiences perceive AI, is that this is what they think of. So you may see AI slop all over your social feeds. I know I do all the time. So audiences are starting to get really mad about AI being used, at least in this type of way. Or they think about stories about data centers or content moderators who have to rate AI for, pennies a day. And so there's certainly, like, right now, a backlash against really overt AI use. And so this for me was sort of a turning point when I had a friend who lives outside of Asheville send me this, and it's a local brewery created a poster. And like 2 3 years ago, I would have scrolled right by this would have whatever. It's just a poster for some, like, some brewery. But people found out and were able to tell immediately that it was AI, and it just like caused a major backlash, and people were really pissed that they weren't hiring local artists after a hurricane had come through. So audiences are pretty wary of it, and it's starting to, bleed over into traditional mainstream media. You may have seen this kind of big snafu that happened at the Chicago Sun-Times. They ran a special section for the summer called Heat Index, and it included an entire list of summer reads that were completely AI generated. The authors were real, but the titles themselves were AI generated. The freelance guy who put it together said he just threw everything into ChatGPT, asked it for it, and it ended up being a major hit to trust, and people really jumped all over it. And audiences are already pretty wary about newsrooms using AI. So we did a one of the first large scale studies of how people in the US feel about us using AI. And most people had little or no confidence or didn't really answer, but not a lot of people have a high level of confidence in us to even make infographics or turn things into audio stories. Obviously, not to write the text or create images that we'll talk about. So, as we go through this whole presentation today, these are the AI principles that we have laid out at Poynter after having two AI summits and thinking through the ethics of this use for the past few years. Because this is what it comes down to: is ethical AI use is really what will make the public more trusting of us using it if we're able to use it confidently and responsibly and in service of the audience. So you can see these are the principles that guide everything we do. So as I talk through these different tools, be thinking about this. And I don't know. I'll ask if you have questions. Like I said, please drop them in the chat. I've got it open. And I'm just curious for those on the call, if you want to drop in the chat, who has a standalone AI ethics policy at their newsroom right now? Or if you're happen to be a freelancer on here, if you sort of have your own that you either have published or maybe you just kind of keep as a guide as you start practicing with these tools. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Keelan. Yeah, so hopefully you can bring this back to your newsroom. Yeah, so this is this both of these the from Keelan and Guy, I run into this all the time. And it took me, so I've launched this AI Innovation Lab at Poynter. It took me 2 years of screaming at my the president of Poynter to try to get something going with AI. So it's slow moving, but the problem is the technology is moving super, super fast. Renee, that's awesome. I wonder how these principles sort of compare to what is in your policy, but in general, like we try to base everything we do in AI around how audiences are going to be impacted by it and how they are going to respond to it. So, one that I like to point out here is humanity. If you look at the Texas Tribune's AI policy, their top bullet point is this technology will not be used to replace journalists. So, in everything you're doing, be thinking about AI as a way to augment your journalists or augment yourself or augment your own humanity. So, yeah, so as we're kind of talking through today, I like to start with the principles because they kind of guide everything we should be doing with AI. Again, I'm kind of starting from the beginning a little bit because I know maybe some of you haven't used a lot of these tools too much, but essentially, you hear about AI as this sort of like savior. I've heard people even like 2 years ago saying, "Oh, it's going to save the news industry." Well, we see how that is going. But AI in real life is not as smart. This is a photo that's circulated in my group chat quite a bit that for me just kind of illustrates what AI is in my eyes. But how it works under the hood is essentially these tools, large language models, were trained to spit out something that sounds like a human. And they did it by hoovering up tons and tons of articles, of books, of research papers, of plays, of poems, of anything you could imagine. And the reason they did this is because the developers behind these AI tools, they put all their money on large language models because they realize that language is the most powerful thing that is held humanity together for as long as we have been around. And language is really the big connector. So they put all their money in this, and the idea was, can we find the relationship between every word in the entire dictionary and how they relate to each other to basically give them a mathematical representation that we can then use to guess what the user wants next. So that's all these systems are doing is they're guessing the next word based on what you ask it. And so for those of you who maybe have never touched one of these, it's a chat bot. You open it up. This is like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and you ask it for something and it spits something back out. So what does this mean? One, it means that they are unpredictable because what comes out of them is a predictive random thing based on what you put in. It could be different every single time you put it in. So they are unpredictable. What comes out of them, you don't know. So it's something that if you're showing it to your audience directly from the chatbot, you don't know what you're going to get. And that has led to a lot of problems. And they're sycophantic, which means they give you what you want because they want to give you the very next word. They want to please you, the user. And those of you who maybe were early adopters and played around with these tools back in like 23, at the end of 22, you may remember after every message you get back, there's a little thumbs up and a thumbs down. And so these are trained on a ton of thumbs ups. If I get an answer that maybe doesn't jive with my priors or my worldview, if I'm just a regular person on the street, I'm probably going to give it a thumbs down. So what you have is you have these machines that are totally like unpredictable, and also they give users, you as the journalist or your audience, what you think you want, which is really important to remember. And that leads to hallucinations. If we were doing this live, I'd ask you to raise your hand. Who here knows what a hallucination is? So, a hallucination is a confident falsehood spit out by these machines because, again, they are trying to guess what you want. They are trying to give you exactly what you want, and they will do it even if they do not have the knowledge. If they were not trained with businesses in the Seattle area, it would start spitting out random business names because you asked for them. I give me every business on this block. It will just start giving you what it thinks you want. So I have hallucinations crossed out here and errors because there are a lot of AI people who say hallucination is just a fancy word that the tech companies put out there to make them sound a little less dangerous than they are, but they are errors. And so, in using AI, the most important thing is human in the loop is something we say a lot, and verifying everything that comes out of these tools. It really is. I'm also the director of a media literacy organization called MediaWise, and we have something called the Teen Fact Checking Network. And I really treat these tools as if I'm working with one of our high schoolers who I've asked to do something and I need to check their work. So, quick question. I just drop in the chat. Like, how often do you use chatbots? Are you using them daily, weekly, monthly? Maybe never touched one ever. Uh, and actually, with that too, also, which one do you use? So I'll be curious, just where the what the spread is. I'm still always curious. How journalists are using these. And there is no wrong answer too. Like I know that's what a presenter is supposed to say. There's no such thing as wrong answers. No, I see such a wide spectrum in every Gemini on the phone. I've actually started using Gemini on my phone a lot. I have it synced up, so I just double tap the back, and I've actually use it all the time. Monthly, ChatGPT, a little bit of messing around with ChatGPT and Claude. Claude is my favorite, and Jody. Yes, if you asked it to write an AP style, Claude is the go-to. ChatGPT regularly, a couple times a week on ChatGPT. Okay, so I think we got a good spectrum of users here. So I think you'll all get a lot out of this. And again, I apologize for how quick I'm going. And Guy, never use any LLMs. Uh, I totally with you on that. Lots of friends, but I will say, uh, it's really cool to try out some of the open source tools. If you check out a company called Hugging Face, which I'll just drop the name in the chat, open source tools are pretty uh, ethical way to experiment with these LLMs if you're concerned about a lot of the things we're all concerned about with these. So what they are good at, they're good if you have a lot of stuff to give them. And what I mean by that is if I give it a research paper, let's say I give Claude a research paper and say, give me the four most important points for my audience. My audience is, let's say so I'm in the Tampa area, Tampa Bay Gen Z. It would be really good at summarizing that and giving me the points that I should cover. If I've got a ton of notes, which I've started doing all the time, I basically walk my dog and I speak into voice memos. about either a project I'm working on or a grant that I'm writing or something like that. And I just speak totally stream of consciousness. And then I copy the transcript, put it into Gemini, and say, organize what I was trying to say here. And it's really, really good. And it's because it has a lot of my voice, it has a lot of my data. There's been a ton of use on SEO. So people, as a digital editor, which I mentioned earlier, it was like pulling teeth to make my reporters put SEO headlines and summaries into things. I wish I had AI back then because it's very good at that. And then alt text. I use it all the time. I don't know if there are any Blue Sky posters here, but Blue Sky is all about the alt text. If you post a photo on Blue Sky and do not use alt text, you will be righteously dragged for it. So I use these tools all the time when I'm like, trying to tweet from an event or something. I'll drop a photo in one of these tools and say, give me the alt text, and I drop it right into Blue Sky. So that's kind of the hard and fast stuff. Brainstorming, it's actually also, these are really good for brainstorming. There was a creative writer who spoke at our first AI summit. Brilliant guy, used to be on NPR quite a bit. And I was amazed because he is an incredible creative writer, but he was using ChatGPT as a sort of writing partner. When he would write something, he would say, "Hey, give me the perspective of a different community in this story," or what am I missing here? Or maybe if you're going into you're on a new beat, like you're covering utilities for the first time, what type of interview question should I be asking? So they call it sort of like getting over the whole blank page syndrome. And I do this a lot where I just might not know where to start with something. And I will ask one of these tools, hey, where should I start? What I will say that they are bad at is writing copy. There is a publisher in Virginia called ARL Now. They started an AI newsletter that was totally written with AI and pulled it almost immediately because the reader said, "This is boring and cheesy, and I don't like it." Same thing happened at Duke. Duke had I don't know. I think they might have pulled it. They had a AI generated publication there. So it is not, they're not good at writing, especially if you're a control freak like me and really care about your copy. But also they can be accurate. I brought up those hallucinations, aka errors earlier. They use your data. So, anything you put into these, I always try to go into it with the expectation that it could be public someday. So do not put your health information into it. Do not put personal data into it. They carry the biases of their training data. So remember when I said that these chatbots were trained on all of that, of articles, of papers, of everything from the past. So that means all of the biases of the things that were written and the images that were captured carry through in the operations of these chatbots. So the example I use a lot is my colleague Kelly McBride has spent a lot of time trying to change the way we cover crime and to cover crime more ethically and fairly. And if I am a crime reporter and I get a press release from the police department and I am short on time and I drop it into ChatGPT and say, hey, write me an article based on this, I'm going to get out a poorly written article, but also one that carries the biases of decades of unfair crime reporting. So they carry the biases of their training data. You have to not just edit for facts, you have to edit for bias. And I've interviewed Ben Collins, the CEO of The Onion, a few times. We had him at our AI summit earlier this year. They cannot be funny. These tools cannot be funny. And it comes through like if write some copy, try to get it to be funny. It is pretty hilarious. But with all that in mind, we are using it quite a bit. And so this is me personally. So I built a tool for PolitiFact that would help PolitiFact fact checkers get started on a fact check. Because as you may know, especially anyone here who covers politics, that what's old is new again. These politicians use the same lies over and over again. The topics, like on their face, might be different, but the lies are pretty much the same. The tropes are the same. And so I created a tool that uses AI to comb PolitiFact's archives to find similar claims, to see how we've rated them in the past, to see if there's anything they should add to their stories. So it's like a just a semantic search is what they call it. And so I created this because basically a reporter would have to go through a bunch of different search terms and spend an hour combing through archives. I don't know if anyone else here has search like my organization and many other publishers. It's crap. So I used AI here for something really practical, really, really internal, but something that has become pretty useful for journalists. The Philadelphia Inquirer is doing something similarly. I'm sorry, I don't have a good photo of what they're doing. This is just from their code repository. But they've found a way to make your archives really, really easy to search. So you can ask questions about, oh, how many times has this guy been quoted? And it will tell you, oh, so and so has been quoted this many times. It's really useful. Again, kind of like the one I did for PolitiFact, such a good starting point. Saves you so much time. And especially if you're onboarding new reporters or you yourself are a new reporter, it's super helpful. More on the external facing, the Minnesota Star Tribune covers the Minnesota State Fair, which has incredible food. I hope you all have seen it. It's wild, and I would love to go someday. So they created a chatbot that guides people to reviews of the Minnesota State Fair food. This is a fun one. It's fun, it's engaging, it's based on the data that they already have. And so I like that one. The San Francisco Chronicle has ChowBot, which was like the first food bot. The Seattle Times, this is more super internal, and this is the best graphic that I could find for this. But the sales team at the Seattle Times is using it in the sales process to help build leads, to streamline things, all of the different jargony things that I can say here. And the Washington Post uses it to summarize reader comments. But this is my favorite use case. I mean, it's an awful sorry about that. It's an awful story, but a really really great use of AI. So the data journalist at the Minnesota Star Tribune was combing through all these videos that the suspect in the shooting up there had posted. And the shooter had posted these videos of them flipping through their manifesto. Their manifesto was written completely in Russian, but it was Russian lettering. It wasn't actually Russian. So they were basically looking at uh, a giant puzzle. And so they realized, hey, why don't we use AI to analyze this? So the data reporter took a bunch of screenshots of all of these pages that are written with Russian letters, but not in Russian, and asked ChatGPT to figure out what the pattern was here. Then they also had Russian speakers come in and translate themselves and kind of review and see. And they were able to put out the manifesto, get the idea behind why this person might have done this before anyone else, because they were able to use AI to analyze the images and the text that this killer had put out. So this is a really internal, but it brings together everything I mentioned before about those principles. This is audience service. It is not replacing humans. It is augmenting investigative journalism in just a very profound way. And as we all may have seen, I don't know if anyone else's Google Analytics look like mine, but they are dipping right now. And we're sort of reaching this point where we are getting they think eventually we're going to have no traffic from Google from search in general because people are getting all their answers via chatbots. So that it's really important now to be rethinking how we are presenting our articles and how we can either expand what we do or repackage what we do. There's this move to basically start charging AI crawlers to come to our sites. So this is kind of the leading up to what I see as the biggest promise of AI, and that is taking what you have and making it relevant to more people, which the Germans, as always, come up with really great terms, have titled liquid content, which liquid content, kind of like that or that or that. Before I go into liquid content, though, just some quick, boring stuff. Has anyone in here used Notebook LM before? Notebook LM is by far become sort of my go-to and my favorite AI tool. It is, ChatGPT is like quick, like, or Gemini's quick, like if I am dropping my transcript in, but this is awesome. It does not, I hate to say it doesn't, but pretty much it's never hallucinated for me. It's never thrown errors for me. And that's because it will turn your documents and your documents only into a chatbot. So you can chat with them, you can ask questions. So basically I use it as these project file folders almost, these sort of project repositories. So this is my Notebook LM from the Summit on AI Ethics and Journalism, and they make me every year write sort of a summary of it. And it's really hard to write a summary of an event if you're also the guy who's running mics and miking people up and like laying out the food and like making sure people come. And so I basically set up all these recorders all over the place. I had slides, I had so much stuff. So basically, like I have transcripts, I have all of this stuff, and I just poured it into Notebook LM. And I poured it in Notebook LM, and then I can ask of it questions, and ask it what are some compelling quotes from the event. The reason I show this one first and I like it is because those are not compelling quotes. I would not call those compelling quotes, but this does tell me this machine this language model is not giving me exactly what I want. What it's giving me is the facts. It's giving me quotes from the event. And if you see this little one here, I can click that one and it will take me to exactly where it was in the transcript. What I did not mention that is actually one of my favorite things about this is you just drop a YouTube link in here and it rips it rips the captions, the closed captions from it. So, for example, I also use this tool when I was trying to do some research on all of the Trump's cabinet picks. They all had to do these really long interviews, and they were all on YouTube. And I could have spent forever sifting through them. I just took all those YouTube links from, like RFK and all the, our guys there, and put them in here, and was able to find like some bigger picture themes that all of Trump's cabinet picks were picking up. So that's a more impactful example than my sort of internal summit example here. But I'll tell you what, it was very, 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 very helpful to have all of this into one place. Um, Good question, Guy. So this technically would not be considered a small language model, but there are lots of people who are trying to build small language models. If you read a book called Empire of AI and you can make it all the way through, there is a wonderful story about people building a small language model to preserve their indigenous language. Great book, highly recommended. But this is something called retrieval augmented generation, RAG. There's something you can impress your friends with. And so it's basically the idea of it is using sort of the power of the large language model, but it's tied directly to something. It's retrieval augmented generation, retrieving directly from that database that you've built there. These are some much better quotes that it eventually gave me that, again, I can go right to the transcript and make sure my context is correct. And here's another thing that it does too. And let me know if you can hear the
All right,
sound.
welcome to The
Can you
Explainer.
hear that, Guy?
Right now, something huge is happening inside newsrooms all over the world.
Whoops. Well, anyway, so this is an AI
All
guy's
right,
voice,
welcome
and
to
I'm
The
trying
The
to
other
scrub.
hand, from a democratic standpoint, it can become a total nightmare. It has the power to trap us in these algorithm, actually pull.
Okay, so that's an AI guy's voice. That's AI. All of this that you're seeing here is AI. This entire presentation was generated with AI. And so you can it turns all of those documents into a presentation like this. It also can turn, if you look in the top right, turn it into a podcast, which they call an audio overview, which I am very embarrassed to admit that if a new research paper drops, like the one from the Reuters Institute today, I might throw it in here, turn it into a podcast, and go on a walk with my dog. It's deranged, and I never would have thought I would ever say that 2 years ago, but here I am. So Notebook LM, very cool to play around with. The other thing that these tools do is something called deep research. which is you ask it a question to do. You're basically asking for a report on something, the same way that a research assistant at a college would put together a report. And so I'm using deep research here to put together a report on real estate activity and political affiliations because I was really curious if my town was turning red after a bunch of COVID transplants came. The answer is yes. But what this did is it pulled together all sorts of data sources from all over the places, from all over the places. So from UF, from OpenGov, from the state, lots of stuff from the state. You will notice there is something from Redfin, which is a good source, maybe not the best source. So it will do its damnedest to put together a really what they call deep research paper, and it has all the sources here. This is a really good starting point, but always check links. These tend to pull a lot from SEO like SEO play blogs, which is very funny. So I did this for the Post and Courier, and for some reason it was pulling from like this like super sketchy SEO blog and it pulled like 10 times from it. And I was just like, why are you doing that? So always check links as you're doing this like initial research. And yeah, never just like throw this into a thing and send it to your editor and say, hey, here's a investigation that I want to do. And here's this report that I put together because you didn't. So let me just quickly walk you through how to play around with what I'm calling liquid content using AI. What I want the through line, and I'm trying to tell the story of here is we have this new technology that's coming out. It is siphoning clicks and engagement away from us because people are going to these chatbots. But it cannot do what it does without your hard work. It needs new information. It needs reporting. These tools cannot give users information if they don't have information. But we also need to continue to be engaging. We have to experiment so we can keep people coming back to what we're doing, and not go directly to ChatGPT. So what a lot of people talk about is the idea of repurposing articles into new and engaging ways. And this could be anything. So in this example, what I'm doing, and this could be again anything. So in this example, I am going to try to turn this news story from my local newspaper here. My alma mater is in the picture, which is why I grabbed it. And so there is research showing that people kind of like an FAQ at the top of a story. If a political if a someone who knows nothing about politics comes upon a political story that has an engaging a headline, it's good to have like an FAQ at the top, and then you can keep that person engaged. News quizzes. I mean, the New York Times has essentially become a games company at this point. And then follow-up stories. So I'm gonna have the uh, LLM of our choice, either that's ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude. Um, in this example, I am actually using Gemini because what I'll just say is ChatGPT, I'm not impressed with after it came out with its sort of new GPT-5. I like Gemini because it performs really well on accuracy, and it's a good mix of writing and data analysis. So I've got the story here. So the first thing you want to do when you use these tools to get the most out of them is to give it a role and tell the chatbot what you want it to role play as. Everything I'm walking you through here is basically prompting. And prompting is the idea of asking these chatbots what you want in the most effective way. And the most effective way, so you can get the same output, as close to the same output every time, and you have to ask less questions. So one, that helps you in being able to automate the things that you might be doing. And two, it's easier on the environment because you're not just willy-nilly, sending a zillion queries to these things. So set the role. So, I gave this Gemini the role of an audience engagement editor with this large background. I gave it a very, very specific one, but you really, at this point, don't have to be super specific. Then I give it directions, which you want to be clear and you want to break what you want it to do, these directions into steps. So this is just an example, and I'll share all these slides with Taylor so she can share with all of you after this, because again, I'm going quick because I want to make sure I can take answers or questions at the end as well. So this, I'm literally telling it, analyze the news article and give me three distinct content pieces. I want an FAQ, I want a news quiz, and I want follow-up story suggestions. This is actually pretty cool if you could operationalize this. So every time you file a story, you get an FAQ and a news quiz and follow-up story suggestions. You'll see the follow-up story suggestions I based around this framework from Reuters, the kind of the four things that readers want out of a story, depending on the type of article. They might want an update me, keep me engaged story. They might want me divert and inspire me, a feel story. I don't care, just make me feel something, or a do story, connect me and help me. What if you could get an idea for each one of those types of stories to fulfill each of your readers' needs? It's just, and you can with these tools. So then I give it the format. This is very important because you want this prompt to be something you can do over and over again. If you're going to use this to analyze PDFs of building permits, you want to get the same format every time. You want the same thing every time if it's something you're doing over and over again. So if I am, every single article, let's say, I'm filing 10 articles a week, that's a lot. Let's say I'm filing, a story a day, I'm going to be using this over and over again. I want the sections to look the same. I want that news quiz to have the same exact format every single time, regardless of what that story is. So I'm telling it straight up, here's how I want this formatted. Here's how I want it labeled. Here's how I want the subheads. And you can be very specific. Do you want the bullet points to be plus signs? I don't know why you would, but maybe you would. So you want that format to be repeatable so you can use it every time. This is something that is a pain in the ass, the first time you do it, but if you're going to use it over and over again, it's super helpful. And that is, I give the chatbot a good example and a bad example. So this is a good example of the follow-up story ideas. So a good example would be, why doesn't Florida allow water and shade for workers? Something about a data-driven comparison between states. The next one, this is a different story, by the way, because it was a better example. And then the bad example is, well, more on the heat bill. We should do a story that gives more background on this issue. So giving it good and bad examples will help ground what it is and like exactly what you want. People should talk to each other. That's a bad follow-up story example. Some pro tips, asking for an example of a better prompt, asking for links and reasoning, and then asking for the confidence. To what degree are you confident that this data is actually correct that you're giving me? Again, you want to double check everything, but these are sort of things and the other thing, just ask for a prompt at the beginning. I don't know if any of you have been playing with Sora 2, which is the new video generation social media platform. If you do, maybe follow me on LinkedIn, but probably don't. But I wrote about it recently. It's this video generation social media platform. And I was using ChatGPT to create prompts for that. That could be an entire other presentation on video generation. It's going to be a very quickly advancing scary time when it comes to AI and media. So these are sort of the outputs I get, and the thing is, I would get the same output format every single time. So it'd be like totally repeatable. It'd be able to drop it into a Google Doc, and an editor would know they're getting the same thing over and over and over again, which is like super, super helpful. But what I like about this, so that's the liquid content idea and being able to turn things. I mean, think about I am if I write something about Sora 2 and how awful it is, I'm able to have it suggest, give me some ideas for a LinkedIn post on it. I'm being forced to do TikTok videos, so give me a TikTok script, which I have to then edit heavily. But I use these tools a lot to take all of the work that I've done and repackage it in new ways that make my audience engagement editor very, very happy. But on the non, some people might think non-sexy, but I think it is way the sexier side is it turns anyone into a data journalist. And if I had 3 hours with you today, I could show you how to do it, but you just need to go play with these tools, throw some data sets into them. And it's just unbelievable. It used to take me 5 years ago. I would have to sit down and write a scraper if I wanted to, scrape all of the layoff notices from Florida's, online Warren portal. Now I just ask ChatGPT, "Hey, write me that scraper, and also show me where to put the num." It is unbelievable. It's something that like if you dream it up and it's something you want to be able to do with something digitally, these can help you do it. And so I've been amazed, and I showed you that example from the very beginning of like the people who used to come to me as sort of the data help desk at my last job now can do a lot of the work on their own. And it's so powerful. Like imagine just having an entire newsroom filled with people who could send out 500 FOIA requests, and send them, accurately, like with the right, things cited and to the right people. I used ChatGPT to send FOIA requests to a county south of us to get their ChatGPT logs, and I got them. They gave me. It's not fully what I wanted, but I'm going to go back to them for that. But I just, I'm not a data journalist in the traditional sense anymore, but I test these out for it, and I've had a lot of success. There's a really funny guy, awesome guy named Derek Willis at Maryland who uses it to he's subscribed to every single campaign email in the country, every single one, and he uses these tools to analyze them and see if there's anything noteworthy. Somebody at our hometown paper was using it to analyze text messages that were in court filings. Um, and so, it's that is to me that I think is the greatest power here is being able to turn anyone into a data journalist. So I'm gonna wrap with talking a little bit about like the risks and disclosures. So we've talked a lot about the different things you can do with these tools. Some of them are very, very internal, writing a bunch of SEO headlines. Some of them might be really external. So if you wanted to turn, I don't have an example here, but all you would have to do is tell Gemini here, hey, uh, turn this news quiz into a chatbot and let me put it on my site. And you could quickly put a chatbot onto your site very, very easily. Now, if you put a chatbot into your site, you're also putting something very public that is known to hallucinate right under your logo. And so there's a lot of risk with that. So I sort of break down the disclosure paradox this way. And when I say the disclosure paradox, what I mean is audiences want transparency around using AI. They've told us that time and time again. In any data set that you see, any survey, people say, we want you to tell us when you use AI. Now, these same people are the ones who, when they find out you're using AI, trust you less. So this is what we're grappling with is the disclosure paradox, in that people want disclosure. And if I create this badass chatbot and I disclose it, hey, this is AI, they might trust me less. So we're working on sort of the art of a good disclosure, but for right now, I sort of break down disclosing on the amount of automation and how much your audience sees. So you wouldn't disclose that you used AI to give you story ideas because those are some that you would vet. Hopefully, your editors would vet really well, and then you would go out and you report them and write them. So you would not disclose for that. I could not see you disclosing if you are working on a story and using research that came out of some deep research. It's internal to the newsroom. While it is more automated, still very internal. Now, on the right side, the most extreme version is the college rankings bot. So this is the bot that I created based on that Tampa Bay Times story. And every single answer is not going to be edited because I can't sit there and respond to every single question that I get from my audience. So you are in risky territory here. because these are highly automated and very audience focused. So you need to be very, very thorough in your disclosure. Here's that data that I referenced about people being very, very uh, like very in on disclosures. Like they think it's very, very important for us to disclose when we're using it for basically anything. And so this is one of the better disclosures that I've seen is from Spotlight PA. They did a voting chatbot, and they did it for a really good reason. And again, when you use AI, make sure you're doing it for a good reason. They were doing it because they were getting these constant stream of questions from people. What's my precinct? What does my candidate say about this? Who's running in my district? And they have all the data, but they don't have the resources to respond to every question, and you don't want to send them a canned response like download our voter guide. So they turned it into a chatbot. Great idea, great execution, and great disclosure. The best disclosures explain why they used AI, what AI did, what humans did, and the limits, and what could go wrong in this scenario. If there may be hallucinations. So this is just a like textbook good disclosure from them that acknowledges it's an experiment. It talks about why they did it, talks about how they did it, and how humans stay in control. And so, the bottom, you'll see at the bottom, the team reviews election assistant conversations daily for accuracy. They're not editing every single response, but they and the guys at the San Francisco Chronicle and other places, they look at the searches at the end of the day, they edit them, they maybe tweak the chatbot. So this is just a really good look at a very well put together disclosure. And the more specific you can be, the better chance you have at winning over someone who may see AI and go, oh no, screw this, because they don't realize that, oh, you're using AI to sift through documents that are helping me like fight the insurance companies or things like that. And so I always like to say, pair this with AI literacy, try to talk to your audience about AI as much as possible. So I'll stop there for questions. If there's anything that I've gone through that you have a question about, or anything, honestly, like anything with AI in general, we have about 10 minutes. Let me stop my share here so I can see if there's anybody on. Yeah, happy to answer anything. And actually, while I am waiting for questions to come into the chat, I am going to pull up our AI for Journalists course so I can pump this. Okay. Is natural language processing like Otter considered AI? Yes, it is. Guy, good question. And it's funny because I remember when generative AI became like the big thing. I was like, I mean, I've been using machine learning since like doing fuzzy matching, like natural language processing has been around for a very long time. And a lot of these tools are basically doing that, like just, a little bit fancier. So yeah, Otter is considered AI, and it is in our AI policy. So we outline, the use of Otter, and Otter has, I talked to someone from the markup about this, that it's like, using something like Otter AI for really, really sensitive interviews is probably not a good idea. And so I always acknowledge Otter AI in my AI ethics policies and sort of how it is still an AI tool and it's still collecting data. And while it's like, they're big on privacy, it's still, you know, I don't trust any tech company, so I'm kind of wary about it. So yes, that is correct. From Jade, when it comes to infographics, and building illustrator AI, would you not have to disclose that tool used? That's something that's standard practice for some Hornet is crediting both staffer and the tool used. I worry that the discreditable feel that would add. Um, yeah, so good question. Yeah, I mean, that's actually a really transparent process you have because I know when we do graphics, I don't know if we acknowledge the tool being used, but right now when it is an AI tool, we are acknowledging. So like you know, like Adobe Firefly. So Adobe Firefly is a generative AI tool. It is apparently trained on licensed content, so the creators have like been paid for their work. That's something like if you look at Poynter's AI ethics policy, I have like a specific Adobe Firefly disclosure in there. So and a lot of this really comes down to the newsroom and your audience. If I live in San Francisco, if I write for like a Silicon Valley audience or something, I might never disclose or disclose with like one sentence. So I know that's a very bad answer to that, but a lot of like we're still trying to figure out how to handle visual AI because that's the thing that gives audiences the most pause and sort of makes them the most uncomfortable. Uh, Next up. Oh, good question. Favorite tools for liquid content repackaging, turning longer videos into podcasts, short form videos, and prepping for YouTube. So because I'm not really doing audience engagement work, I have to say I am not familiar with the best ones right now. The problem is, uh, Keelan, that there are so many companies that are just like all of a sudden getting onto the scene and saying like, "Hey, I have this tool, I have that tool." I believe Capwing, I think, has been around for the longest, and I hear that most people using it for this type of thing. That's like another thing I try to tell people is like when you're looking for a new AI tool, go to your networks and like if there's like a listserv or if you're on like a Slack, like I encourage you if you're into data, the news nerdery Slack is really great. But if there's like a network you have, you can always like say, hey, I just got some guy just came and tried to sell me this tool to repackage YouTubes into TikToks. What do you think about it? And so that's been a big thing for me is leaning on my networks and figuring out whether a tool is legit. But right now, there's just not a set of like tools the way we had. Like there's no like Microsoft Word for this type of thing now yet because there are just so many players in the field. Yeah, and the funds to try. Believe me, my our CFO at Pointer gets very upset with me because I have to try the tools out, and she's like, "What the hell is this? What is this charge I'm getting this month?" So, yeah, yeah. So, good question. Um, let's see. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So, Guy, do you distinguish between generative and non-generative AI tools in terms of accuracy risks? So, non-generative is always more accurate. Like what makes these tools not so inaccurate, but hallucinate is because they are generative. So, traditional like AI tools, like ba basically like a transcript you get from like Otter is going to be more accurate than dropping like an audio clip or something into ChatGPT and saying, "Hey, transcribe this." So definitely, you're going to see more accuracy out of non-generative AI tools. Uh, Grok. Ooh, Grok. So we've seen Grok give out some questionable answers. What is the likelihood of corporations and bad actors influence our AI models? Um, yeah. So as someone who I am first and foremost a media literacy educator at my core, and so this is the thing that sort of keeps me up at night. And I think Grok. I'm almost glad that Elon did what he did with Grok because I think it woke people up to the fact that a few engineers have their fingers on the lever of what people will see as reality. And so this is a constant concern for me. And so again, if you read any book this fall, read Empire of AI. It's wonderful. It's very, it's long, but it will kind of walk you through how these companies see their role, and they don't see themselves as like information or companies that are providing that. So it's the last thing on their list is providing accurate information. So I think you need to instill a good amount of skepticism within yourself, within journalists. Follow what's going on at these companies. What I will tell you is the reason I use Claude the most is because Claude, the company Anthropic that made Claude, was founded by a bunch of people who left OpenAI because they were like, moving too fast. They're really into AI safety. They also still like to make money, and they still have people on staff that are saying, "We need to roll this thing out now." So knowing the limitation of these tools is good, and knowing the companies and getting to know sort of the big players in the game is important too. When using AI to poke holes in stories, what are the risks and how do you weigh them? Some AI tools may have privacy settings that claim to not. Uh, yeah. So this is I remember 3 years ago these slides there were like 10 slides I think, and the questions I would ask these newsrooms at ChatGPT 1.0 was how much is your content worth, and and yeah, how important is the data that you're giving to these things? Because back then they trained on anything you put into it. So if I have a paywall and I'm putting my article in and saying, hey, edit this for AP style, it's now trained on it, and it now has the article that you've worked to get to put together. So there are privacy settings. There are big thinkers in the AI world. There's a guy named Simon Willison, who is an absolute genius in the field, incredible, smart guy. And he told me, I asked him, I was like, hey, what do I do about these tools? And he was like, at this point, it's almost like thinking, what am I going to put into a Google Doc? Could that be leaked? Yes, it could, technically. Yeah, I mean, anything you put into the cloud could be leaked. So I do try to be careful with the content that I put into it. If I'm working on a big investigation, I might run a something locally. So there is a tool called Olama. I'm just putting the name in the chat that will allow you to download these chatbots directly to your computer, and you can just use the chatbot on your computer, and it doesn't go to the cloud. It's all self-contained, so you don't have to worry about that. Um, let's see. So we are a little bit over time here. I did want to drop in a link to this AI for Journalists course that we just put out that has everything that I talked about today. That but much, 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 much more in depth. That is a pretty cool course. Let's see. Did I miss any questions? Oh, on Tristan Harris and the ethics around this use. Can you expand on that, Kathy? Sorry. Or Kathy also asked, retired last spring using ChatGPT with my engineering students, and still I'm a little shocked this is so new to people.
Sorry.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so Tristan was just on Jon Stewart last night, which is why he came to mind. And he's very concerned about the point that you had with how few people have control over what reality might look like to niche groups of people. And he's thinking about it much bigger than we are talking about it here with journalism. He's talking about it political and social levels. So
Yeah.
so watch that episode of Jon Stewart on Comedy Central.
Yeah, I need to check it out. I mean, that is the thing that keeps me up at night, quite honestly, because I mean, we watch this with social media. I mean, a tweak to the algorithm made news go away from Facebook. I mean, I didn't lose my last job, but half of the people at my old job lost their job because Facebook changed its algorithm. That's on them for their business model, whatever, my previous job. But the fact that, I watch the numbers tick up of people who are using these for news and information, which now I think it was like 20% of people. The new Reuters report came out. And so it's something that tells me that we need AI and media literacy in every single school, because students need to learn how these tools work and how to interpret the answers from them, and where to go for news. I mean, I was teaching kids in 2019, like, hey, here's why you shouldn't like get news from this YouTuber who is a chiropractor and talking about COVID, 2020 maybe. And we're sort of, I think we are now going to be paying the price for the lack of media literacy that we instilled in our students. And it's going to be because we're in this supercharged like AI environment. So it keeps me up at night, but also like at least gives me, some sense of mission in what I'm doing. And I hope I hope it does with you all too, because the main thing that you need to remember is that like these these tools cannot function without good information. No matter how much these guys try to tweak it to match their own reality, it's going to start affecting people in real life and they're going to rebel. There's only so much like political disinformation that someone can stomach before it starts affecting their life in real ways. And they start realizing, oh, wait, I screwed up here. And so, journalists are going to be the ones there who are picking up the pieces and cleaning things up like we always are, but we need to be there. And so that's we also got to figure out our business model around AI, and that's like something for a whole other time. Last thing, Jade, sources regarding AI in a PR and marketing space. That course that I created is for like media professionals. So there are some PR examples and things like that in there. But I presented at a PR and Comp Summit a few months ago, but I don't remember directly if there were any good sources from that space. Oh, there's a guy named I forget his name, but there's a newsletter called The Media Copilot. I think he's like a big PR guy. Well, thank you all.
Thank you all so much for joining. And thank you, Alex, for the wonderful insight. This was really awesome. And we appreciate your time and staying up late for us on the East Coast.
Yeah.
I put a note in the chat, just a reminder, we're still looking for board members, and the link to get the information is in there. And if you aren't already subscribing to our newsletter, put your information in the chat as well, and we'll add you to our newsletter. So thank you. Big round of applause for Alex, and we hope you have a good night, and thanks everybody for joining. And this is recorded, so I will send it out later this week. All right, have a good night, everyone.